Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world where everyone wants to be seen. Everyone's talking, tweeting, snapping, posting. But let me tell you something powerful. Most people are walking around waiting for external conditions to change while ignoring the fact that everything external is a reflection of the internal. The real transformation in life doesn't begin with a shift in your environment. It begins with a shift in your mindset. If you're stuck, it's not because of the world, your boss, your spouse, or the economy. It's because there's something inside of you that you refuse to confront. The truth that most people don't want to hear is that you are exactly where your habits, your mindset, your level of discipline, and your belief systems have brought you. You didn't just end up where you are by accident. You were led there by patterns you've normalized and decisions you've justified for years. Fixing yourself means you have to tell yourself the truth, even when it hurts. Most people are not honest with themselves because they're more committed to comfort than they are to growth. But comfort is the enemy of calling. You can't become who you're supposed to be by staying where it feels safe. Your purpose will never be found in your comfort zone. The reason you haven't made progress is not because God doesn't want to bless you. It's because you haven't become the kind of person who can carry the blessing you're asking for. When your character catches up with your calling, things will start to shift. But until then, your growth is restricted by your internal limitations. You don't get wealthy by chasing money. You get wealthy by changing the way you think about value, time, and service. The difference between rich people and broke people is not just knowledge, it's identity. Rich people see themselves as solution providers, while broke people see themselves as victims. As long as you identify as a victim, even God can't bless you with overflow, because overflow requires ownership. Ownership of your choices. Ownership of your mindset, ownership of your outcomes. Until you own it, you can't change it. And if you don't change it, you're going to repeat it. Fixing yourself also requires accountability. You can't grow in isolation. You need people in your life who don't just comfort your wounds, but challenge your weaknesses. Some of the people you call friends are really enablers of your dysfunction. They tell you what feels good instead of what's good for you. But growth requires feedback. And feedback, if received with humility, will become the foundation for transformation. You don't rise to the level of your dreams. You fall to the level of your habits. So if your habits are average, don't expect exceptional outcomes. There is no such thing as casual excellence. You've got to realize that time is a depreciating asset. Every minute you spend staying the same is a minute you're not becoming who you were created to be. You keep saying, I'll start tomorrow, like you've got a contract with time. But the truth is, the clock is ticking, and opportunities don't wait for you to get ready. The market doesn't care about your excuses. The world is not going to pause while you sort yourself out. You have to move now, and the only way to move at the speed of destiny is to remove the weight of excuses, bad habits, broken mindsets, and emotional clutter. You can't take old thinking into new territory. You can't take a broke mentality into a wealthy future. You can't take a bitter heart into a purposeful assignment. There has to be a shift. You want more? Become more. You want better? Be better. You want growth? Let go of what's holding you back. The problem is never the problem. The real issue is who you are while facing the problem. You're asking for God to open doors, but have you become the kind of person who can walk through them without sabotaging the opportunity once you get inside? Internal transformation is the only path to sustained external success. Fix your mindset, fix your language, fix your faith, fix your habits, fix your environment, fix your focus, fix your level of urgency, fix what you've been ignoring for years, and fix the things you've been blaming others for not doing for you. There comes a point in every person's life where they have to realize that the life they're living is either a reflection of intention or neglect. Either you are building something on purpose or you are surviving by default. There is no in between. People don't accidentally become successful, and they don't accidentally become broke. Patterns create outcomes. Beliefs shape behavior. And repetition builds reality. If you don't like the reality you're living in, you've got to stop trying to modify the surface and start reprogramming the root. You don't fix a rotten tree by painting the fruit. You fix the soil, you uproot the corruption, and you replant with wisdom, truth, and discipline. The issue is not that people don't want to change. Most people desperately want change. They just don't want the process that comes with it. They want results without resistance. They want promotion without preparation. They want destiny without dying to who they used to be. But change isn't something you receive, it's something you become. And becoming something different requires letting go of what has been familiar for so long. The identity you've built around your pain, your trauma, your excuses, your struggle, that's the very thing blocking you from the future you claim to desire. Until you're willing to bury the version of you that's addicted to excuses, you will never resurrect the version of you that's built for purpose. Most people are praying for miracles when they should be preparing for multiplication. You can't multiply what you're not managing. You want God to increase your business, your influence, your income, your impact, but you're still complaining about the discipline it takes to steward what you already have. Increase always reveals integrity. More pressure, more responsibility, more visibility. It will expose whether you've truly been doing the inner work or just faking productivity to impress people. And the most dangerous thing about false progress is that it feels real for a while. You can fool others. You can even fool yourself. But life will test your foundation. And when the shaking comes, only what's built on truth will remain standing. You don't become excellent by accident. Excellence is a decision made daily, not an event celebrated occasionally. It's not about doing one thing right one time. It's about doing the hard, unseen things consistently until the fruit begins to show. The grind isn't glamorous, but it's what separates those who wish from those who win. Stop measuring yourself by what you feel like doing. Emotions are indicators, not leaders. If your discipline is led by how you feel, you'll never become who you were designed to be. Successful people don't feel their way into action. They act their way into a new emotional state. They've trained themselves to follow principles instead of feelings, patterns instead of moods, truth instead of trends. You've got to stop confusing motion with progress. Just because you're busy doesn't mean you're building. Just because you're learning doesn't mean you're applying. Some people are addicted to starting, but allergic to finishing. And finishing is where transformation lives. Finishing is what builds confidence. Finishing is what builds momentum. The reason you feel stuck is not because you don't have potential, it's because you keep stopping short of completion. Excellence requires you to close the loop, to follow through, to push past discomfort, and finish what you said you would start. There are doors that will not open until you rise to the version of yourself that has the key. And that key isn't talent. It's not charisma. It's not who you know. It's character. Character opens doors that talent cannot sustain. Character is what you do when no one's watching. It's how you show up in private that determines whether you qualify for promotion in public. If you want doors to open, fix what's behind the door of your heart. Fix the things that no one sees. Fix your habits when no one's watching. Fix your patterns in the quiet place. That's where destiny is decided. That's where breakthrough is born. That's where you become someone who doesn't just dream, but dominates. There's a reason why the same problems keep showing up in different seasons of your life. It's because what hasn't been addressed internally will continue manifesting externally. People think they're facing new battles when in reality, they're recycling old ones under a new disguise. The enemy isn't always something out there. It's the parts of you that you've allowed to go unhealed, unchecked, and undisciplined. You can change your environment. change your job, change your circle, but until you change your inner programming, you'll keep attracting the same patterns with different faces and new consequences. True transformation doesn't happen by relocation. It happens through revelation. And that revelation begins when you stop blaming the world and start rebuilding yourself. People are often more afraid of success than they are of failure because success exposes everything that failure allowed them to hide. As long as you're stuck, you never have to deal with the fear of visibility, the pressure of excellence, or the weight of responsibility. But as soon as you start growing, people start watching. The spotlight doesn't make you, it reveals you. If you haven't done the work in the dark, you'll collapse when the lights come on. That's why fixing yourself isn't just a suggestion, it's a requirement. The life you're praying for is only sustainable by a version of you that you haven't become yet. And you will sabotage what you haven't been shaped to sustain. You've got to get serious about mastering your emotions, your focus, your attitude, and your energy. The person who can master themselves can lead anything. Business, relationships, teams, movements. They all respond to leadership. And leadership begins with self-control. If you can't control your tongue, you can't control your outcomes. If you can't manage your impulses, you can't manage success. If you can't take authority over your emotions, you can't take authority over your destiny. Your emotions are real, but they are not law. They are signals, not commands. And if you keep following feelings that don't align with your future, you'll keep circling mountains that were supposed to be conquered a long time ago. It's not enough to dream big. You have to build strong. There's a big difference between having a dream and being ready for the responsibility that dream requires. Most people love the idea of impact, income, and influence, but they ignore the disciplines, the sacrifices, and the structure that make those things possible. You don't get what you wish for, you get what you're built for. And you're only built for it when you've allowed yourself to be forged in the fire of repetition, refinement, and responsibility. If you're still blaming others for where you are, then you haven't built the foundation required for what's next. Ownership is the entrance to overflow. Without it, you'll always feel like you're one opportunity away, when in reality, you're one decision away. This world doesn't reward potential, it rewards productivity. It doesn't care how gifted you are if you're undisciplined. Your talent will open the door, but your character will determine how long you stay in the room. Every successful person you admire has mastered things in private that most people ignore. Morning routines, financial habits, spiritual disciplines, thought life, time stewardship. All the boring stuff that no one sees becomes the backbone of a life that produces extraordinary results. If you want uncommon outcomes, you must embrace uncommon discipline. You have to become allergic to average, intolerant of excuses, and obsessed with integrity. You don't fix your life by working harder on the outside. You fix it by transforming who you are on the inside. You uproot the lies you've believed, the shame you've carried, the habits you've justified, the mindsets that have been silently sabotaging you. You replace them with truth, structure, wisdom, identity, purpose. That's how generational cycles are broken. That's how business breakthroughs are born. That's how marriages are healed. That's how legacy is built. And it all begins with the courage to stop running from the work and start doing the work. Most people underestimate how much their future is being controlled by what they refuse to face in the present. You can't conquer what you're not willing to confront. You can't be free from what you're still protecting. You keep calling it personality, but it's really a pattern. You keep saying it's just how you are, but it's really how you've been conditioned by pain, by fear, by disappointment, and by self-preservation. If you don't go back and deal with the origin of the dysfunction, you'll keep building your future on a cracked foundation. You can't build legacy with a broken identity. You've got to go deep, not wide. Real success starts in the unseen places. The part of you that no one claps for, the discipline no one witnesses, the mindset work that happens in silence when no one's looking and no one's cheering. What most people want is relief, not results. They want to feel better, not become better. That's why they look for distractions instead of direction. They chase validation instead of transformation. But until you learn how to sit with discomfort long enough to extract wisdom from it, you'll keep running from the very process designed to make you whole. Growth is violent to your comfort zone. You cannot remain the same and expect your circumstances to change. Life doesn't respond to your wishes. It responds to your willingness to evolve. And your willingness to evolve is directly connected to how much truth you're willing to receive without resisting it. The reality is that every blessing you're asking for comes with weight. Promotion has weight. Purpose has weight. Prosperity has weight. The question is not whether God wants to bless you. The question is whether you've built the capacity to carry the blessing without being crushed by it. Everybody wants the platform, but few want the process. Everybody wants visibility, but not everyone has developed the vision and values to handle it. It's not about speed, it's about structure. If you rise too fast without the character to sustain the climb, the same success that elevated you will eventually expose you. The danger isn't in the opportunity itself, it's in what it reveals about the parts of you that were never made ready for it. The biggest enemy of your destiny is not the devil, it's your own disobedience. Delayed obedience is still disobedience. Every time you hesitate when you know what needs to be done, you are saying yes to staying the same. Clarity without commitment is a curse. God will show you what's possible, but it's your responsibility to pursue it. You've been praying for instructions while ignoring the last set you received. You've been asking for elevation while resisting the very action steps that would prepare you for it. You don't need more confirmation. You need more conviction. Conviction to act. Conviction to change. Conviction to get serious about who you were created to become. Fixing yourself is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming the real you. The version of you that was designed with intention, vision, and greatness. The version of you that doesn't settle for mediocrity. The version of you that knows discipline is love and correction is protection. You've let too many wounds define your identity. You've let too many failures decide your future. But you're not what happened to you. You're what you choose to do with what happened. That's where your power is, not in avoiding struggle, but in mastering it. Not in pretending it doesn't hurt, but in refusing to stay broken. The process of fixing yourself isn't punishment, it's preparation. Preparation for a higher level of stewardship, leadership, impact, and influence. But preparation will feel like pressure until you realize it's a privilege. And the moment you begin to treat your development as a gift rather than a burden, everything begins to change from the inside out. You will never rise higher than the standard you set for yourself in secret. It's not what you do in front of people that shapes your destiny. It's what you do when no one is watching that determines who you really are. Excellence doesn't start on the stage. It starts in the dark. That means you have to get serious about your private life, your thought life, your spiritual life, and your discipline behind closed doors. You cannot fake fruit. You can pretend for a season, but the pressure of life will always expose whether you've built your life on convenience or conviction. Your future is not going to be built by how much you know or even how much you want. It's going to be built by how deeply you're willing to work on the invisible areas of your character, your consistency, and your commitment to principles that don't change even when your feelings do. Most people live reactive lives instead of proactive ones. They move only when life hits them, when bills pile up, when pain gets loud enough, when relationships fall apart, when their health crashes, when the consequences finally outweigh the comfort. But greatness doesn't wait for a crisis. Greatness is built by those who move when nothing seems urgent on the outside, but everything is urgent on the inside. That's what self-leadership looks like. It means you don't need external motivation to do what's right. It means your standards are not determined by circumstance, but by identity. When you know who you are, your behavior aligns with vision, not with emotion. You don't need someone clapping for you to stay consistent. You've built something inside that's stronger than the resistance around you. You've got to understand that your capacity is a reflection of your inner structure. And structure is what holds blessing. Without structure, opportunity becomes chaos. That's why you don't pray for harvest without first building systems to manage it. You don't ask for more money without building the discipline to steward it. You don't seek greater influence without cultivating the humility and strength to carry it. Expansion without preparation is dangerous. Growth without roots becomes instability. You want God to open doors, but every open door comes with new levels of responsibility. Every elevation comes with greater weight. And if you haven't done the internal strengthening, what looks like a blessing can crush you. This is why fixing yourself isn't optional. It's urgent. It's foundational. It's the only way to sustain what you're being called into. Some people sabotage their future not because they don't have talent, but because they haven't healed from the parts of themselves that believe they're not worthy of success. Unworthiness becomes a silent destroyer. It shows up in procrastination, self-sabotage, perfectionism, fear of visibility, and playing small. You can't walk in full authority while secretly questioning your own value. That's why the inner work matters. You're not just fixing habits, you're fixing the identity that keeps allowing those habits to exist. When you change how you see yourself, you'll change what you tolerate, what you attract, and what you pursue. You can't produce long-term transformation from a mindset that's still chained to insecurity and fear. Your outer world is always catching up to your inner beliefs. There's a cost to staying the same. There's a price for inaction. And that price is far higher than the discomfort of growth. You don't get to skip the process just because it's hard. You don't get to avoid the work and expect the reward. Life is always going to test what you say you believe. Discipline will feel like a burden at first, but it's the path to freedom. Consistency will feel ordinary, but it's the gateway to extraordinary results. Every day you show up when it's not convenient, you're building a foundation that pressure cannot destroy. Every time you choose principle over emotion, you're forming the future that purpose requires. Fixing yourself is how you unlock the version of you that can carry the assignment you were born to fulfill. Every person is born with potential, but potential without discipline is a burden. It haunts you. It reminds you of what could have been every time you ignore what must be done. It whispers in the quiet moments, not to discourage you, but to warn you that life does not wait forever. Time is moving, and if you don't move with it, you get left behind. Not because you weren't capable, but because you weren't committed. People spend too much time admiring talent in others and not enough time activating purpose within themselves. You're not stuck because you lack opportunity. You're stuck because you've tolerated low standards, entertained distractions, and postponed the pain of discipline for the comfort of delay. You can't afford to keep repeating the same cycles and calling it a season. A season ends, a cycle continues until something inside of you interrupts it. The people who change their lives are not the ones who have perfect conditions. They're the ones who decide they've had enough. They draw a line in the sand. They stop negotiating with their old self. They stop arguing for their limitations. They stop waiting for motivation and start operating from principle. That's when everything starts to shift, not because the outside world changes overnight, but because their identity begins to evolve. You'll never outperform the picture you have of yourself in your own mind. If you keep seeing yourself as broken, unworthy, average, or behind, then you will unconsciously keep creating experiences that reinforce that image. You've got to train your mind before you can transform your life. That means you stop reacting to life like a victim and start responding like a leader. A victim sees obstacles. A leader sees options. A victim blames. A leader builds. A victim looks at how far they have to go. A leader acknowledges how far they've already come and decides to keep going anyway. You don't lead others until you learn to lead yourself. Self-leadership is the foundation of every kind of success. If you can't keep a promise to yourself, you can't build anything sustainable. You can't build trust with others if you're still breaking agreements with your own soul. Most people don't need more knowledge, they need more application. You already know what you should be doing. You already know the habits that would change your life. You already know the patterns that are holding you back. The problem is not ignorance. The problem is inconsistency. And inconsistency is often rooted in unresolved fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of success, fear of exposure. But fear doesn't go away by waiting. Fear goes away through action. Action creates momentum, and momentum creates confidence. You don't feel confident and then act. You act, and the confidence comes after. Fixing yourself requires the courage to let go of every version of you that was built for survival. The version of you that stopped dreaming because dreaming became painful. The version of you that lowered expectations because disappointment was too familiar. The version of you that performed to be accepted rather than lived in truth to be whole. You can't take survival habits into a season of purpose. You can't take scarcity thinking into a season of abundance. You can't take shame into a space where you're supposed to lead others. The old you served a purpose once, but now it's time to outgrow it. You're not here to survive. You're here to build, to lead, to impact, to multiply, to heal, to expand, to live in the fullness of who you were called to be. The reason the inner work feels so heavy is because your future requires a stronger foundation than your past did. You can't carry a greater assignment with a weak structure. You can't step into destiny while protecting dysfunction. You have to choose which version of you wins. The one who gives into fear, excuses, and cycles, or the one who confronts everything, surrenders what must die, and rises with clarity, with intention, with vision, and with power. You've heard the truth. Now you have to decide what to do with it. Every excuse you've been telling yourself has just been stripped of its power. Every delay, every distraction, every lie you've believed about why you're not ready has been exposed for what it really is: resistance to responsibility. This isn't about motivation. This is about a decision to stop repeating the same cycles, to stop waiting for someone to fix what you were created to take dominion over, to stop negotiating with fear and start leading your life with conviction. Fixing yourself is not a punishment. It's the path to freedom. It's the process of becoming someone who doesn't need to be rescued because they've learned how to rule. You were never called to survive life. You were created to transform it. But transformation doesn't happen by hoping. It happens by aligning your habits, your thoughts, your identity, and your faith with the assignment on your life. You are not behind. You're just one bold decision away from everything shifting. The time for waiting is over. The window for change is now. Fix your focus. Fix your patterns, fix your character, fix your standard, fix yourself before it's too late.